Welcome into Fantasy Focus Football. Today is Tuesday, November 22nd. Today's
Victory
show,
Tuesday.
Victory Tuesday.
Wow. Do you guys, this is a fun fact. No, but this is actually a great moment for the podcast. The two teams that now share the longest winning streak in the NFC at 3 games are none other than the San Francisco 49ers and the Detroit Lions.
Yes.
You guys are the rulers of the NFC right now.
How great is that? Those winning streaks are brought to you by Geico. Switch to Geico, see all the ways that you could save.
And Christian McCaffrey.
And
Also
Christian
brought to you by
McCaffrey as
Christian
well.
McCaffrey.
Yeah. We are going to talk about a bunch of things today. One of them definitely being the 49ers victory over the Cardinals on Monday Night Football. We also
They
have
look super to me.
They look
Infer from
really
that
good.
what you will.
We also have waivers with Eric Moody coming up, and we're going to preview a bunch of Thursday Thanksgiving Day games. That's right.
This is number 2.
But most importantly, there is one thing that we need to lead off with today, and it is not the San Francisco 49ers
I know
victory.
what it is. It actually takes precedence over the 49ers. I know where you're going.
Our wonderful, beautiful, amazing friend, Keith Lipscomb, not cool Keith, as you have come to know him here on the podcast.
The coolest guy.
Is the most amazing human in the world, has a birthday today. He's going to be 35.
Yeah.
And
That's
so we're
how old he looks.
he looks
50.
I checked his ID this morning. I didn't believe it.
to.
Yeah, I did not believe it. It's ridiculous.
Backwards. He is the Benjamin Button of our world.
Keith, you've done so much for all of us. Like you do everything for the rankings for all of us. You do so much within all of the writing and the editing. In fact, you were that's what we're looking for.
Happy birthday.
There's
Very
so
cool,
much
Keith, is what we actually
behind the scenes that you do that people just don't realize that we know about on a daily basis. And we love you so much for everything that you are. But most importantly, Keith, I love you because you're an amazing human. And because you're a pretty good ball player. People may not realize it, but you're pretty good out there on the court. So,
definitely. Him and Tim Kirkchin are well known amongst like the most underappreciated hoopers at ESPN. He's a great coach. He's a great dad to 3 kids, great husband. And I think Keith, you know, when someone celebrates a birthday or any sort of notable moment, I think we do. It's human nature, I think, to maybe speak a tad hyperbolically, right? This is the greatest. This is the whatever. Keith, there is no hyperbole involved. The single nicest human at ESPN and
most polite,
most modest individual you ever
asking
meet.
for stuff on a deadline like, please, and would you mind?
Yeah, we're all better every single day to have Keith in our life, but you know, certainly as ESPN employees, but more importantly, as friends. He stands for everything that I think is good in the world, and you know, it's reflected in his kids, who are all 3 just bright stars that have so much to offer, and have already done that. And the only part about Keith, there's only one thing about Keith that I don't like.
What, that he's a Cleveland fan?
No, he is annoyingly awesome at fantasy football.
Oh, is that what it is?
Just an absolute titan. Any league you play in with Keith, it's like, oh, here it is. We're in a league together, Daniel, Keith, and I. It's called the Gasco League. Yep. And I remember checking the projections at one point during the week, and I saw that Keith and him and I are kind of jockeying in the same tier for a potential seed. And at one point, the projections, you know, it's a huge roster, so those things are more subject to change. I was like, all right, Keith, like either projected to lose, maybe a close win. He ended up being the highest scoring team in the league, won by like 75 points.
Which happens like
it
at
happens
least
every week.
It's all the time.
And then you can't get mad because he's so nice.
Yeah, you're like, oh wow, Keith, I have nothing to say.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
This has been different. Keith, I used to spend so much time with you back in the old days behind the glass when we did the podcast out of the radio studio. And so we had so much fun. And with the new setup, it doesn't quite work the same way. But please know every single day you're still here in our hearts and we love you. We think about you. Happy birthday, my friend.
Again, the Cleveland Browns, please get a win for Keith for his birthday.
Absolutely. Let's get a W from the Browns. That's what we're looking for. All right.
They're playing the Bucs, right?
Yeah, you can definitely get a W against
totally
the
gonna
Bucs.
happen.
No big deal. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
Nick
Let's
Chubb all day.
talk about this Monday Night Football game, which is brought to you by Geico.
Yeah.
Switch to Geico and see all the ways that you could save Stephania.
What happened? I'm not really sure.
On Sunday morning, you and I were doing a waiver segment, and I was like, whoa, this is why you don't wait until Sunday morning to pick up a quarterback. But if you do, who did we suggest you pick up and start?
Jimmy Garoppolo.
And what did Jimmy Garoppolo do?
Oh, nothing but doubled his production in touchdowns with 4 touchdowns, over 200 yards passing, and pretty much had a near perfect passer rating, I just want to say.
25.4 fantasy points. It was his best game all season. But here's the thing. One of the reasons why I suggested him was because of consistency, right? He's been averaging about 17 fantasy points over the last 5, not including last week. So he's been giving you somebody that you can start at that position, not have to worry about the volatility. This week, though, with all the additional weapons that he has in that offense field, he just looked fantastic and crushed.
You knew this was going to happen. You know why? Did you see the suit that Jimmy G showed up in last night?
That's
Jimmy
what it was.
G is like a devastatingly handsome man.
It's
like,
really, it's annoying. And if you talk to people, they talk about how he's the nicest guy. He's just humble.
No, he's great. If you don't love Jimmy, it's more about you than it is Jimmy. He's been beloved.
And just think how well he handled what was an incredibly difficult situation this offseason, coming back from shoulder surgery, quietly working out on a side field while the 49ers are practicing, thinking he's going to get traded, not really knowing what the future would be. Then they're like, okay, well, we want to keep you just in case. Turned out to be a pretty good idea.
It certainly has worked out for all parties. I think Jimmy will be handsomely paid somewhere next offseason. Yeah, very much pun intended there.
Maybe New York. And
for our purposes, we're sitting here as we are evaluating whether there's some value here for fantasy going forward, I think what makes this more built to last than you might have thought in previous years of Jimmy Garoppolo is while San Francisco's always had some talented pieces around him, it reminds me of what's going on in Miami right now, is that everywhere you turn, there's another freak athlete with the ball in his hands. And last night, we'll talk about how much he did or did not play in just a moment, but it's like Elijah Mitchell was incredible last year, and he barely plays for San Francisco, at least in the first half. Jimmy Garoppolo in the first half is throwing darts to Christian McCaffrey early in the game. George Kittle has a touchdown. You have Brandon Ayuk scoring twice last night. Deebo Samuel, who they're able to pitch count him a bit this year because they're so talented and deep.
He was so happy when Christian McCaffrey came on board.
And so it's hard. Jimmy G's not going to add any value with his legs, and they certainly can have weeks where they can just ground and pound you and just win via submission that way. But I do think the upside for passing touchdowns has grown with Jimmy G, and I'm not trying to take this away from him, but they're going to be, as they always have been, one of the best teams in terms of yards after the catch.
Yep.
And if he has to dump the ball, if he dumps the ball off 15 times a game combined to Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and George Kittle, and they have chances to run after the catch, I'll take my odds there. Yeah. And so Jimmy G this week, and I know it's a little early to be talking about ranks normally, but because we have a weird week, he's in my top 13 of quarterbacks this week. He is in a good spot against the Saints, assuming they still don't have Marshawn Lattimore. We'll see on Cam Jordan. Peyton Turner, first-round pick last year, is banged up. They got a lot of injuries over there in New Orleans. Jimmy G could feast again.
A plethora of assets within this offense, and the only thing about Jimmy G is it could be the opposite of this week where the 49ers just have a 3 or 4 touchdown game. And that's always, potential that could happen, I guess.
But yeah, you mean on the ground? You're saying,
on the ground.
Yeah, they could.
Yeah,
it does feel like, though, that because Christian McCaffrey is playing more than Elijah Mitchell by a pretty healthy amount, CMC's an incredible runner. Elijah Mitchell's probably a more powerful runner. CMC, it's if they have the ball first and goal from the 6, they might be just as likely to have CMC run a little option right out of the backfield and throw the ball as they would have been.
And I think you saw that last night because the receiving yards were up double the rushing yards for McCaffrey early on.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm pretty sure that this is the first week since week 1 that Deebo Samuel has outscored Brandon Ayuk in games that they have played together.
Isn't that crazy?
Is there I don't want to say is there a changing of the guard here with the way that they use these two guys, but are you still ranking Deebo ahead of...
I think you're definitely ranking Deebo ahead because of what he gives you, and the upside play with Deebo is ridiculous, But I think I don't think that you can necessarily script the Niners every week going forward, because I think what you've seen already in terms of how Kyle Shanahan is using these different pieces, these different chess pieces, is it's been different in the few weeks that they've all been together. Granted, the first one with McCaffrey, he barely played. He was just getting integrated into the system. But then there was this split, and everybody got nervous. Elijah Mitchell, Christian McCaffrey. Now you see the reverse happen this week. I think that the game script is going to be different week in and week out, and you're not necessarily going to be able to predict. But Deebo is always going to give you the bigger upside.
Yep. That's fair.
I think probably last night, it's a tricky one because Ayuk finishes with 16 fantasy points. 2 catches, 2 touchdowns, 20 yards. So efficient, that much is for sure. The question we had when they acquired CMC and got Deebo Samuel back healthy was there going to be an odd man or men out in the 49ers offense if Those 4, and let's include Elijah Mitchell because he's a very good player as well.
Let's include George Kittle then.
Well, I had George Kittle. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So Kittle,
because
McCaffrey,
he was way more productive
Debo,
last night than he's been.
Ayuk, and Elijah Mitchell. Those 5 is there going to be an odd man or men out, and last night was the first night that there kind of was amongst the pass catchers, and it was Brandon Ayuk. We'll see whether that is a sign of things to come, if like his volume just drops a little bit because he has been good in the 4 games prior to this. So I'm not sounding the alarms too much yet. I think the reality is that because of how good this offense is and how much upside there is, they're averaging over 28 points per game with Christian McCaffrey in 4 total games. Like, that's obviously very efficient, very good, that there is a lot of upside sort of across the board. But last night maybe was a little bit more volume-wise like we expected it to look like once they traded for Christian McCaffrey and also had Deebo Samuel back on the field.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard to predict week to week. I think you have just as easily a potential to see a huge Brandon Ayuk week with a little bit altered role for Christian McCaffrey.
I mean, they're just ridiculous right now.
Which,
that's why, again, I think they look super.
You don't care about if you
superb.
play fantasy. You know,
You want one, but yeah, as a
49ers
Niners fan, you're
defense
okay with
scored
it.
you a lot of points too. I mean, there you go. It's another fantasy tool for you.
I want to ask you, Stephania, about the Cardinals because Kyler Murray did not play in this game, and
We had
Hollywood
told you,
Brown.
we warned you.
We were worried. Not worried, but we weren't sure where it was going to land. Ended up not playing here as well.
We didn't really think he was going to play though on
We
Sunday. We
suggested-
talked
yep.
about the fact that he was just entering that window to be activated. It was very early coming back from that midfoot injury. Despite his optimism, didn't seem like I'd like to see more in practice out of him before we really think that he's going to play. But Kyler Murray now, Jeremy Fowler. Our Jeremy Fowler is suggesting that he may not play until after Arizona's bye week, which is
next
week
week.
13.
Yep.
So, you know.
By the way, sort of seems like that's where Hollywood Brown might be as well.
And what did we say on Sunday? That we saw this before with Kyler. Remember, it was, he could play Monday. It was all, and now it's maybe not till week 14.
My buddy Doug Kai joked about this recently, or made a remark about this, that like Cliff Kingsbury calls guys game time decisions that are like 6 weeks away from playing.
Every time. They're day to day, they're game to game time. We're
It's
going to
like
warm them up before
2 months later, the guy returns, and
Yeah.
it's like, he's been day to day for 8 weeks. It's like, what? So,
However,
remember-
DeAndre Hopkins was questionable and then actually played and looked pretty good.
Oh, he looked great in the first
yeah.
half, especially D-Hop. But in terms of guys that like suffer a fresh injury, and then it's like
but-
day to day, probably like game time decision. It's
And then
like,
it's
wait,
like
so
3 weeks later.
here's
till you
my
actually see him.
expectation right
Yeah.
now: is I expect that there will be no Kyler Murray. I expect there will be no Hollywood Brown this upcoming week, and Stephania, it certainly seems like we won't have any Rondell Moore either.
He left after his first play.
First play of the game?
Limped off the field, had a groin injury. What?
Did you guys see the bad beats last night?
No.
So I'm gonna be quick because we have a lot to get to.
No,
but
this
just-
is
just
I
give
know
me-
this is you got
is
to
really
talk
good.
about this
is-
one. But Rondale Moore, for those who are asking, he ended up with a groin injury, did not return to the game. So if he went out after one play, the chances are that it's not going to be great for
Greg
next
Dortch.
week. And with the bye coming up, Greg Dortch, stepped
What a
in.
player he is. Just
Looked great.
if Rondell Moore is out this week
Yep.
and Hollywood Brown is not available, Greg Dortch is on the radar.
Stepped right
Definitely.
back into that role. That role has been awesome in this
I thought he
Cardinals
played
offense.
really well.
He's great. Just a really solid player, former Wake Forest college in college. Like, just really happy to see him continue to make the most of his opportunities. So this is a tweet. This comes from the pretend GM, Alfredo Brown, on Twitter. And he posted, it's basically a 3-part story. And it's a friend of his who sends a question. Hey, another league question. I'm up by less than a point. I have Rondell Moore starting. His team, meaning his opponent, is done scoring. Should I bench him, meaning Rondell Moore, or should I start him? I know it's late, but start him. More likely to have a point recalculation, also known as like a scoring update,
adjustment,
scoring
yeah.
adjustment, than have him score negative points.
Yep. What happened?
Totally reasonable thing.
Yeah.
What happened?
Rondell Moore, first play of the game, 1 catch, -6 yards. This must have been, you know what? I think it was a rushing attempt, technically. It was a rushing attempt, -6 yards, -0.6 fantasy points.
This guy
He ends up
loses.
losing his matchup as a result of playing Rondell Moore.
That's crazy.
And by the way, I'm sure that this friend of Alfredo Brown's is not alone. There's
Yeah.
probably a lot of you
Yeah.
out there. So this is just,
It's a bad beat, is what it
pour
is.
one out for those people. And I will stand on my belief that it is always the right thing to play a player if you have someone left over. Stat corrections be damned. I just think it's part of the spirit of the game, beyond the fact that 99.99% of the time, Rondell Moore is going to score 0 or positive points and not negative points. But gosh, I just want you to know out there, if you started Rondell Moore and you end up losing as a result of it,
You're not alone. You're not
sorry.
alone.
Not alone.
This
You're
was
not
one of
alone.
those process over result calls that doesn't make you feel good, but like the call was right to start Rondale Moore because Greg Dortch scored a lot of points. And like,
by the way, what's much more likely is that this person who started Rondale Moore is in a playoff race, and one of the tiebreakers is points for, and Rondale Moore stays healthy and ends up getting you 12 fantasy points. And at the end of the season, maybe you're in 5th place in your league as opposed to 6th, or maybe you're in 3rd as opposed to whatever, 4th. Like maybe you're in the playoffs or not in the playoffs. It's tough. I know this is a cruel game we play sometimes, and we just want you to know out there that we're pouring one out for you today. I will have an extra Miller Lights during Thanksgiving in your honor.
That's right. All right, let's talk about some news as we head into week 12. Excuse me, Stephania.
Yes.
As we had a couple of major things happen. Very first thing, actually, we had Melvin Gordon get waived.
I know. Well, 5 fumbles is one too many, apparently. And this is something that we thought was going to happen sooner. It didn't happen, but there's been a lot of turmoil in that backfield between injuries and ineffectiveness with Melvin Gordon. And then, so they had Chase Edmonds come in. So they're like, well, we have Chase Edmonds now. So, you thought that he was going to cut into Melvin Gordon's time to begin with, but then Chase Edmonds ends up with a high ankle sprain in this game, injured in the first quarter against the Raiders. Nathaniel Hackett saying he's going to, quote, miss a lot of time. So, look, that means 3 running backs for this week. Latavius Murray, Marlon Mack, and Devine, how do you pronounce it?
Devine Ozigbo. Yeah, and Moody will have a little bit more on Latavius Murray, but I know it sounds crazy, but he passed the eye test.
Yeah.
He looked good. He's looked good. I've got him as a
and he's got the job.
Top 20 play in my week 12 rankings.
Top 20?
Yeah.
Oh, he's top 25 for me.
Yeah, the Chase Edmonds stat line was not quite as bad as Rondale Moore, but 2 rushes, 6 yards. So
yeah, I think the Chase Edmonds
that was tough.
I think we kind of know what he was.
Yeah,
he was our visions of him being a feature back. He's much better as a satellite player in space. Like, let him be a pass catching back, and but not built to be, I don't think, a workhorse back.
Stephania, Kyle Pitts has headed to the IR. How long is this stint going to be? And does it even matter for the rest of the fantasy season?
Well, I think for fantasy purposes, you're done with Kyle Pitts. And it's terrible for him. I mean, MCL injury is the report, the potential surgery. The way these work, it depends on the location of the sprain. Where the ligament attaches, there can be a decision made around the nature of the severity of the injury and the exact location as to whether you operate on it or not. So if you're hearing reports that they're discussing it, that's very legit. But either way, he should have a full recovery. So the Kyle Pitts that we knew as an athlete should be back to his former self once he gets better from this. But for fantasy purposes,
good to drop Kyle Pitts. Rostered in 96% of leagues, so you can free up a roster spot.
Yeah, I mean, if you have an IR spot and you're really, really desperate and you think you're the eternal optimist, you can keep him. But just a reminder, the Falcons, one of 8 teams that has not yet had their bye. That means that he is out until week 17 at minimum. I would think it's actually all the way through the season.
Yeah.
By the way, if your league stops in week 17, you ask yourself this question. Are you really going to stand by for the outside chance that Kyle Pitts plays in week 17? Or you're going to use that roster spot elsewhere, he can be safely dropped.
I have that same question on Jameson Williams because as a Lions fan, I saw him designated to return this week. Dan Campbell said that, but what does that mean for me in fantasy? Is he actually going to get up to speed enough to be usable?
I don't think so. So designated to return, you've got the 21-day window.
Okay.
I think this is very important in terms of Jameson Williams' recovery from ACL because it allows him to practice. So when you're getting to that high level and you want to replicate football activity, football situations, you get a guy back to practice. I think it's important for them to do that before the year is out. Whether he sees any playing time remains to be seen.
Yeah.
So I would not be starting him in fantasy.
I'm not be adding him either.
I'm not adding him yet.
Yeah, it wouldn't matter. I think if we found out this Saturday, like, oh, he's been great, he's going to be activated for Sunday's game. Or I guess the Thursday, obviously.
I still want to see it because
we want to see it first. Yeah. But I think there's a better chance that 18 days from right now, we are asking, hey, will the Lions activate Jameson Williams to the 53-man roster? And by the way, if it is that full 21 days, we're talking about being in week 15 of the NFL season. Again, you want to see it for a week or two. Are you going to play Jameson Williams in your fantasy playoffs? The answer is likely no.
Likely no. All right, Stephania, one more wide receiver here. Wan'Dale Robinson had himself a game against the Lions on Sunday, unfortunately tore his ACL.
The Giants and their wide receiver woes continue. Wan'Dale Robinson, torn ACL, obviously done for the year, and we will have to wait until the summer to see where he is in terms of timeline to return.
Screw you, MetLife.
Yeah.
That's my thought. MetLife Stadium stinks. It's embarrassing that we have an NFL stadium. By the way, an NFL stadium that has 16 home games a year. Actually, now it's more. It's 17, right? Because they're two teams playing in the stadium. And I know Stephania is probably better equipped to discuss this than I am. But you just look at the number of injuries on MetLife, and what's the expression? Numbers never lie. It's absurd how many injuries there have been. And this goes back to the beginning of last year, all those 49ers injuries. We've seen so many players happen the week one with the Ravens.
There's a longer conversation to be had about turf versus grass, and there was a study released that showed no differences, but we all know that there's artificial surfaces there are many different types of artificial surfaces.
They have a slim turf,
OTL actually did a segment yesterday on this. This is an off-season conversation that we will have, but yes, all you got to do is ask the players. Yeah. They do not love. With 49ers had 2 season-ending injuries on MetLife turf a couple years ago.
And I should know that they are replacing it this offseason. So they are changing surfaces this offseason to a different type of field turf. But it's just a shame because the NFL will constantly talk about the health and player safety being the highest priority, which I believe. I also think that it's a little bit insincere when a stadium is seemingly this much more vulnerable to player injuries than every other stadium in the NFL.
Those players are the lifeblood of the league, man. Yeah. We just want that, being healthy is what it's all about.
We hope him well. We wish him well. Obviously, Wanda Robinson will keep a very close eye on this one going into next season. We've learned a lot about just how much an ACL can slow down a player the season after. Darius Slayton has 4 straight games for the Giants with at least 11.5 fantasy points. Can't imagine his role will slow down anytime soon.
We're going to be back with our buddy Eric Moody in a second, but first, Stephania, why don't you go ahead and lead us off on what is known as a live read, also known as a sales segment in L, where we help pay the salary that is so large of yours on this show.
Oh, Daniel, you make me laugh. But Geico asks, how would you love a chance to save some money on insurance? Of course you would. And when it comes to great rates on insurance, Geico can help. Like with insurance for your car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and RV. Even help with homeowners or renters coverage. Plus, add an easy-to-use mobile app, available 24-hour roadside assistance and more, and Geico is an easy choice. Switch today and see all the ways you could save. It's easy. Simply go to geico.com or contact your local agent today.
If you're hiring, you know the struggle. Quickly finding the best candidates for your team can seem like an impossible task. ZipRecruiter makes it easy to find exactly who you're looking for. They're like a talent scout for your team, bringing you the candidates who best fit your needs. Whether it's a civil engineer in New York or a pediatric nurse in Nebraska, an attorney in Colorado, or even a mascot in Missouri. With ZipRecruiter, finding the perfect match is simple. ZipRecruiter makes it easy to find the right person for the job. Let ZipRecruiter narrow down your search. Their powerful matching technology finds the right candidates for you. Filter, review, and rate candidates all from one easy-to-use dashboard. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. When you're ready to build a winning team, let ZipRecruiter help you build the perfect roster. You can try it for free today at ZipRecruiter.com/FFF. That's ZipRecruiter.com/FFF. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
All right, we welcome in our good buddy Eric Moody for the Week 12 waiver wire. Eric, always good to see that beautiful smiling face of yours. Is it chilly in your house? Is that why you have the vest on?
Actually, it is chilly. You know, one thing about the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I feel like it goes from, summer, we skip fall, we just go straight to winter. That's just how it goes here.
What is winter in Dallas? Cold. Isn't it?
It's like,
it's like 60 degrees?
70,
oh, it's real
70,
chilly down there. Sure, Eric, totally. Hey, let's talk about some quarterbacks available on the waiver wire here in Week 12. And Eric Moody, if you're looking for somebody, one guy here that you can start in Week 12, who is it that you're looking at off the waiver wire?
You know what, Dopp? I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm going to put it out there. I would say Derek Carr, who's looked a lot better over the last 3 weeks. You look at Carr, I'm like, he's actually scored 17 or more fantasy points over the last 3 games. He looks even more calibrated now with Devontae Adams, which is good. You know, they have rapport, obviously, going back to their college days. And I would say if you're a fantasy manager who may be wondering what is going to happen with Justin Fields, with the shoulder. Will he play or will he not play? I would pick up Derek Carr really as a contingency plan. In my opinion, he's a solid QB2 this week against the Seahawks and what I expect to be really a high-scoring game. So
Yeah, I mean, taking on Seattle, there are definitely worse matchups that Derek Carr could have in a streaming option, and I'm with you on the Justin Fields take. You just got to be prepared because you never know what's going to happen. We'll continue to follow at Stephania_ESPN on Twitter to find out more about Justin Fields throughout the week. But if you can't get Derek Carr, is there another quarterback that you potentially like off of the waiver wire this week?
Yes, I'm smiling because I've mentioned this quarterback in the waiver wire column multiple times and on the show here, and I'm going to do it again, and that is Jimmy Garoppolo, who's actually scored. I can hear Stephania back there. Yeah, I'm like, Jimmy looked great. He looked great last night. A season high, 25.4 fantasy points. I'm like, he scored 16 or more fantasy points in every single game except one. And we saw what he's capable of with the playmakers that Kyle Shanahan has surrounded him with. Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle finally went boom for fantasy managers, and really what I thought was like a week-winning type of performance, especially at the tight end position. And I'm viewing Garoppolo, I would say, as a high-end QB2. In my rankings at ESPN, I've got him ranked QB 13, I believe. So I'm viewing him as a high-end QB2 for fantasy managers against the Saints this week. So if you can't get Derek Carr, pick up Jimmy G.
Love that call, and I'm totally with you on that one. There are definitely worse places you could go. He's just got so many good assets within that offense to be able to utilize. All right, Let's talk about the running back situation, and you are giving us a Chiefs running back off the waiver wire. Which one is it, Eric Moody?
It's got to be Isaiah Pacheco, right? Again, another player I've written about in the column before, wrote about him again for this week, had a career-high 107 rushing yards on 15 attempts against the Chargers, actually becoming the first Chiefs running back this season to surpass the century mark. And Jarrett McKinnon is really entrenched as the passing down back, I would say. He ran 21 routes in that game. But you got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's out with what they're calling a high ankle sprain. So he's going to miss some time. You look at Kansas City's upcoming schedule for running backs. It's very favorable. I'm like, you should really be salivating looking at that schedule if you're a fantasy manager. And you look at this Chiefs offense. You want exposure to it. They rank first in total yards per game and in points scored per game. So I'm looking at Pacheco really as a solid RB2 with upside for more.
Yeah, I want to see him get into the end zone because it always hurts to see someone get over 100 yards and then finish with just 10.7 fantasy points. It's like your day was so much better than I feel like is represented here within the fantasy stat sheet. But all right, if you can't grab Isaiah Pacheco, someone who else I also really like, who's another running back you would be looking at off the waiver wire?
Well, you got to look at Rachaad White. I'm surprised that his roster percentage in ESPN leagues isn't higher. Perhaps it was because of the bye week. But just to remind everybody, you look at Week 10 against the Seahawks. White had 22 carries for 105 yards, became the first Buccaneers running back since Bobby Rainey in 2013 to surpass the century mark in rushing yards. And I know Leonard Fournette's not expected to miss time, but here's the reality. The Buccaneers gave White the nod to start. I'm in the camp that I believe that trend will continue. And so I do like White really as a flex option with upside. He's going up against the Browns defense that gives up the second most fantasy points per game to running back. So if you can't pick up Pacheco, do not overlook Rachaad White as well.
I am 100% with you, and we've also heard Adam Schefter talk very highly about what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers think about him. So definitely someone worth rostering as you get into the playoff stretch. Anybody else at the running back position you want to mention before we move on to wide receivers?
It's got to be Latavius Murray. So you just look at this Broncos backfield. So Melvin Gordon apparently had too many fumbles. The coaching staff were at their wits' end. He was waived yesterday. And you've got Chase Edmonds, who's dealing with a high ankle sprain. Now, a running back that they traded for prior to the NFL trade deadline. So it's like a last man standing scenario. You got Latavius Murray that's there. You also have Marlon Mack. But hey, this is going to be Murray's backfield moving forward. Like, he scored a season high 17.2 fantasy points on Sunday against the Raiders. And he's actually gotten in every single game since being a member of the Broncos 10 or more touches. Now, I know what some people are thinking out there, Dopp. They're like, Moody, this Broncos offense isn't any good. There's some truth to that. They rank 21st in total yards per game, 32nd in points per game. But in fantasy, it is all about the volume. And I'm looking at Murray as a volume-based RB2 against the Panthers this week. So if you miss out on those other two running backs, do not overlook Latavius Murray.
Yeah, I'm with you there on that one. Someone that, again, low-end RB2, but someone that is going to get a ton of volume, at least right now within that Broncos offense.
Exactly.
All right, let's talk about some wide receivers here. Which direction you want to go at the wide receiver position off the waiver wire this week?
All right, before I mention two players, I just want to state, if Christian Watson is still available in your league, I know he's rostered in a lot of places. Over the last 2 weeks, 53.8 fantasy points. If he's available, pick him up. But I do like Donovan Peoples-Jones.
58.3 fantasy points.
I guess that's okay. It's not bad.
I think he's the number 2 wide receiver over the last 2 weeks, right? Yeah. Only behind Devontae Adams.
Yeah, not bad at all. But I'm surprised he's available in the percentage of leagues that he's in. But hey, I digress. But you get Donovan Peoples-Jones who's out there. I've mentioned him in the waiver wire column quite a bit as well. One thing about Peoples-Jones, over 11 fantasy points in 5 straight games, season high 17 fantasy points against the Bills. So if he's available, he is one wide receiver that I would pick up. Got a great upcoming schedule, and obviously Deshaun Watson will be returning here in a couple of weeks per report. So his ceiling could be even higher.
Could definitely be higher, and someone I like as well. We talked about DPJ quite a bit. Been using him in fantasy. Check out the CSS DFS podcast for all of our daily lineups. DPJ has been useful there. All right, let's talk about one other wide receiver here, and Treylon Burks, who came on last week, Eric Moody. Is there a chance that this can continue?
I believe it can, and I've been very high on Treylon Burks heading into this season. I know he didn't have the... as I mentioned on social media, like a few weeks ago, before he went on injured reserve, obviously the kind of the coming out, fantasy football party. But he is trending up, and I have liked what I've seen from him since returning. So last Thursday night against the Packers, he had a season high 8 targets, season high in fantasy points at 18. And played over 50% of the snaps, ran 21 routes, eerily similar to Robert Woods and the other Titans receivers. But I think his role would only continue to grow. He looks healthy. The Titans passing game is trending up with Tannehill back under center, who, by the way, scored 19 fantasy points in consecutive games. So I'm looking at Burks really as a weekly flex option. Now, the Titans' upcoming schedule is... it's formidable. It's not the best schedule, but I think you could do worse than having someone like Treylon Burks as a flex.
Sure. At least an upside play you could have towards the back half of your roster that maybe gives you something to be able to look forward to during the playoffs. Eric, thank you so much. Follow Eric at Eric N. Moody on Twitter, and tell everybody else what else you do around here. It's Daily Notes, I believe, is the big thing that I follow every single day. That's so many good stuff in there.
Yeah, the Daily Notes is great because that's basically a column for fantasy managers who are busy, day in and day out, family, 9-to-5 job, and really want to keep up with the news. And so that's published every morning pretty early, which gives you a synopsis of all the fantasy news that you should know about. And also, of course, in addition to the waiver wire column, create sports betting content, not only on the NFL, NBA, and WNBA as well. So hit me up on Twitter. Always like engaging with everyone. Looking forward to it.
At Eric N. Moody. Enjoy your Thanksgiving, buddy. We'll see you.
Oh, you too. Until next time.
Until next time, indeed. And we go from Eric Moody to the only thing that's probably close to as cool as Eric Moody, which is pizza from Little Caesars. Hey. Little Caesars Preview is brought to you by Little Caesars. It's game day with Little Caesars, the official pizza sponsor of the NFL. Say it again. Pizza. That's pretty good right there. We begin on Thursday, which there are 3 games. So if you're going to take a nap, be very strategic about when you get that post-turkey nap. Tryptophan has a very... It has
It's my favorite weekend of the year for football. I love it because it's like there's
nonstop, right?
It's nonstop. There's pro, there's college.
Oh, yeah.
There's
Ohio State, Michigan, first time they've both been undefeated since 2006. Winner clinches, all but clinches a spot in the college football playoff.
That's
Loser
exciting.
Probably going home. We'll see whether Michigan star running back Blake Corum plays on
also
Saturday.
on our network, Florida State, Florida. And I want both of them to lose.
Oh, I was going to say, you know what, Stephania? Well, Florida State's been better. Florida, you don't have to worry too much about because Florida has fallen quite far this season. But I'm a big Billy Napier guy. I think he'll get things going. It just takes some time, obviously, when you transition. Let's talk about the Little Caesars preview.
On Thursday.
Yes, and Daniels Lions play host to the Buffalo Bills. Second time in 4 days, the Bills play inside Ford Field in Detroit. Big thing I'm watching here is how the Lions divvy up running back snaps. Whether DeAndre Swift plays any more than he has of late, just 21 snaps recently, my instinct is probably not. This is going to be something he's going to have to continue to manage throughout the year. He's still in the injury report, even if he is a full participant. Oh, by the way, it's a bad matchup, too. You saw what the Bills just did to Nick Chubb this past weekend?
Yep.
I'm weary of both Lions running backs this Thursday. If I had to start one, and I did have both, Jamal Williams is my preference. On Sunday, good to have every team back from a bye. There are no teams on a bye this week. The NFL, I think, sort of considers a competitive advantage or disadvantage because there are 6 teams playing on Thanksgiving. Easier to have everybody playing this week, and that includes the Miami Dolphins And the Dolphins play the Texans on Sunday. Could that one get out of hand? That Miami offense could put up all sorts of points. Wouldn't surprise me if Tua and Tyreek, heck, any Dolphin could be a league-winning player for you on Sunday. And if they get behind big, I hope Dameon Pierce gets more passing game utilization, because just running, not catching many passes, and not finding the end zone has not been the winning formula for him over the past 3 to 4 weeks. And then on Monday night, we have 2 running backs I think have been playing better of late. We didn't really get to it on Sunday night show, but Najee Harris had his best game of the season by far. He found the end zone twice, 27.5 fantasy points, not a ton in the passing game, but Jaylen Warren left that game for the Steelers. We'll monitor his status for Monday night, because if he's out, should mean that Najee is closer to where he was in terms of snap percentage a year ago. And then Jonathan Taylor, back-to-back games of being pretty effective for the Indianapolis Colts. We know their formula, right? They want to run the football and play good defense. Against Pittsburgh, they sure can. And with that, let me tell you about Miller Lite, because I'm going to have several on Thursday with perfect way to wash down turkey. 'Tis the season to get together with good friends and great drinks, and that means 'tis Miller time. Sure, the holidays can be stressful. All the more reason to raise a glass or can to keep things uncomplicated. Since 1975, Miller Lite has been the beer with taste you can depend on. No games, no gimmicks, just a great beer. Not only is Miller Lite a great tasting light beer, it's also a great fit for the beer lovers in your life. And for even more gift ideas, perfect for beer lovers, visit the Miller Lite shop at shop.millerlite.com. Their new holiday collection features everything from cozy beer-inspired holiday sweaters to drinkable ornaments for your tree. That is awesome. This holiday, 'tis Miller time, so enjoy Miller time with friends and family. Miller Lite, great taste, 96 calories. Go to millerlite.com/FFF to find delivery options near you, so you can give the gift of Miller time this holiday season. Or you can pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere they sell beer. 'Tis Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.
I need to look into these drinkable ornaments. I don't know if they're for me or for the tree.
Agree.
Yeah. It might be for the tree. I'm not sure. Right. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is the go-to when betting on the NFL this holiday season. And right now, new customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game, and they will get $150 in free bets if they do. Everyone can earn up to a 100% boost with DraftKings stepped-up same-game parlay. So go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, place a same-game parlay, and combine multiple bets like which team will win, player props, point totals, and more. The more legs you add, the bigger the boost, the bigger your shot to win big. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code FFF. Place a $5 bet on any NFL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they win. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code FFF. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. 21 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Tennessee, call or text the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. Bonus issued as free bets. One early win token issued to opt-in. Moneyline bets only. Deposit and wagering restrictions apply. Eligibility in terms at DraftKings.com/football terms. I don't know if you guys saw Dan Orlovsky, I think on SportsCenter with Al Duncan, giving out trash Thanksgiving food takes.
It was so bad, Elle walked off the set.
It was not good. I just wanted to ask if you guys had any Thanksgiving food takes before.
Well, we all
love
Dan, but he's
very
got the horror.
smart, dedicated to the football stuff.
We don't need
Dan, I love you, buddy.
No, his
Your
food
takes
are the worst.
Don't even
bad.
bother.
Ever since he did the red wine with the ice cubes and that, like,
so bad.
We
right?
can there's no other take necessary. That was so wrong.
Yeah.
But always we have this conversation around Thanksgiving: the cranberry, the can or homemade, and why is it only homemade is the correct answer?
Ooh, okay. So I actually like both. Now, do I have a strong preference? My preference would be homemade, but I tolerate both. I think I'm too much of a fence sitter with some of my food tastes.
You are, because you're a New Englander. So as a New Englander, you should say the only proper cranberry is homemade.
Okay, fair enough. And I am going to be on Nantucket, where they have wonderful cranberry bogs,
exactly.
which is the coolest part of fall on Nantucket.
So don't you dare say can.
So
what about
I
you?
think my biggest
cranberry
revelation.
sauce.
You don't like it?
No.
We'll just keep moving forward from this conversation then. Yeah. My thing that over the past, my brother Taylor gets the credit for this. Fried turkey is the way to go.
What? I have
once you
heard
fried
that.
turkey, you don't turn back. It's just not even close.
Is amazing,
it's
but
1,000 times better.
I've not had it
so
yet.
good.
I got to say this. I think everyone's doing Thanksgiving wrong, because for my entire life, I eat Thanksgiving lunch, We eat. We have an entire, all of everything.
Yeah.
It's not a dinner for us. It's ready at 12:30 because that's when the Lions play football. And my entire family, like grandparents, aunts and uncles, everyone, my entire life. And the reason why that's such a great thing is because you eat all that food during the Lions game.
Yeah.
You then slowly fall asleep during the second football
half.
game.
Don't see what happens.
And then not during the second half in the second football game. Because there's 3 football games, and then you wake up, and then you get to have leftovers, and then you don't have all of those turkey leftovers that everyone complains about. It's because you're supposed to eat them twice.
Okay, so that's fine. I think that's like a reasonable plan. Actually, it doesn't seem like too controversial in my book. I think our Thanksgiving time always varies based off of like what's going on that year. There's
Who's coming
a
in
lot of
town,
kids
schedules,
now,
sure.
so it's naps and all those things you're juggling.
I like your strategy though. Fall asleep so you don't wake up when the Lions lose.
Come on now.
So I think we all agree like stuffing top 2, probably not 2. But I'm preparing the world for this because I saw a little teaser of this somewhere on social media. Matthew Judon is an unreal player. Like might be an All-Pro this year for the Patriots, but apparently he hates mac and cheese.
I saw that.
Yes. So get ready. And I think because obviously there's only 3 games, we'll probably have a pregame before Thursday Night Football. We may hear about Matthew Judon's distaste for macaroni and cheese, which I got to be honest with you.
Such a weird thing to dislike.
That's a weird thing to dislike.
Yeah. Yeah.
problem.
Of all the things to dislike in the world, mac and cheese is just not like the one.
I mean, the green bean casserole is understandable.
yeah.
right?
Yeah. You could like that,
Nobody likes that.
That's an
Yeah.
option. That's an optional thing. Optional for sure, right? But like mashed potatoes, mac and cheese, stuffing, turkey, like it's hard to screw that up. Maybe some cornbread, just a bun in general is good. Not that you need more carbs on that day, but still, like you got to
it's a
sop
day
the
of
gravy up
starches
just
and
in
carbs.
case.
Let's
Yeah,
not
of course.
apologize for it.
I know we got to move on. I'm going to ask one last quick
we
question.
have to?
No, we don't.
Enjoying the food
Exactly. I'm all in on pies. And for some reason, some
this
people
is a
just
good one.
hate pies. What's up with that? Are you a pie person?
Jason Fitz.
What's up?
Hates pie. He's got. I mean, he's over there in the Dan Orlovsky boat with that.
Yeah.
That's
Do
the
you know why
problem.
those two don't like joy? Do you understand?
You know what? I don't know the answer to that. It is a
Yeah,
great question
that's
when you
weird.
pose it that way. We
Yeah.
love both
I
of you
know.
guys, but you just got to work on your
And
food
sweet
taste.
potato or pumpkin pie? I'm a pumpkin all the way.
I would do pumpkin over sweet potato.
I would do pie.
Yeah.
I like all pies.
all pies.
Yes.
If it
Mincemeat?
comes,
I even
Mincemeat?
I don't know what that means. That's not even that's a savory pie, right?
Yeah, it's like a
it's like
New,
a meat
it's a
pie
New
from
England pie.
Sweeney
It's
Todd.
I will say this:
Right?
I do love pecan pie as well. Pecan or pecan, both work
Pecan.
and also
pie.
delicious. I think it's great. People don't like it. I like it.
Yeah.
That's one of those words that I say exactly the same as whoever says it to me because
That's
I don't know
exactly
which
what
one.
I do.
Yeah.
It's like Alvin Kamara. When
Yes.
someone's like, "Yeah, I love Alvin Kamara. He's one of my favorite players." I'm like,
You're like,
"Dude,
I love
Alvin
Kamara, too."
Kamara's awesome." Yeah.
I totally changed it
Then
to
someone's
whatever
like,
they
"I drafted
say.
Alvin Kamara third in my fantasy this year." I'm like, yeah, I took him 7th in my fantasy league. Like
Me and Alvin
Kamara,
Kamara.
Chubb coming around the
Kamara.
corner. Like, yeah, it's great. You know.
All right, let's talk about these Thursday
God, I'm
games.
hungry.
Wait, hold on, really quick before we do this. Just
Yes.
like out there listening right now, we're gonna do all the Thursday games. We have determined that all the Thursday injuries are pretty much like it's unless something happens after the show, we're in a pretty good spot with them. We're gonna try to do a couple of other games as well. Check your ESPN fantasy app. Watch
gosh.
fantasy football now on Sunday. Spying's gonna do our very best, but it's Tuesday, people. Normally we're waiting until Friday to do the show, so bear with us. Show a little bit of grace. Let's talk about the Thursday
Big social
games.
media week. You're going to find out a lot of news on social media rather than through the podcast. So follow everybody on Twitter and get all of that there. All right, let's
Yeah,
talk
but
Bills.
just mute Dan Orlovsky's food takes.
That's right.
Otherwise, you're good.
The Bills at Lions. This one is going to be a fun one. One of these teams is on a winning streak. 3-game winning streak. All right, lineup blocks include Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs for the Buffalo Bills. Here's my question about the Buffalo Bills. If those two are lineup locks, Fields, Yates, when you're looking at a guy like Gabe Davis, does he fall into that flex territory, that high-end flex territory for you?
No question about it. Really not too much of a question mark on Gabe Davis. 5+ catches in consecutive games. That's good. And then, of course, it's a great matchup as well.
Great
right?
matchup.
So it's a great matchup against an inexperienced Lions secondary that could be without Jeffrey Okudah, who's in the concussion protocol right now. Okudah, former 3rd overall pick, been an improved player this season. Still a little bit up and down, but yes, it's a good opportunity that if you're looking for some upside here, Gabe Davis certainly fits the bill. Not too many question marks for the Bills just in general for fantasy football.
Not really. I think we're looking, if we want to talk about running backs really quickly, like Devin Singletary is still a guy that we're starting, low-end RB2, high-end flex play, just based on what this offense is and his ability to get in the end zone. But
Keeps running the football pretty effectively of late.
And he looks good doing it.
Yep. So not a whole lot there. What about Dawson Knox? If you need a tight end, it feels like this is a spot where you could potentially have him. I think he's outside like my top 13, 14.
Yeah, I don't think much changes for me with Dawson Knox than any other week. He's a really talented guy. He's not the first or second or even the third option sometimes. So if you start Dawson Knox, you are hoping that you get lucky with a touchdown. But with Josh Allen as your quarterback, you could get lucky there.
Lineup blocks for the Detroit Lions include just Amon-Ra St. Brown, in part because we talked about this, Field. You mentioned the two running backs. This is a really tough matchup here.
Really bad matchup for the Lions running backs against the Bills, who have just been sturdy. They're good on defense in general. They are going to have a couple of key injury absences this week amongst the defensive linemen. Sounds like both AJ Epinesa and also Greg Rousseau are going to be absent, but the run stuffers should be there. And it's a little bit of a timeshare, as we know. Over the past 4 weeks, Jamal Williams has a pretty decided snap edge, but he's not really touching the ball in the passing game. Yeah. So if you're going to start Jamal Williams, you're counting on a touchdown. We talked about the really good with Jamal Williams. He has 5 games with two touchdowns this year. Do the math. They played 5 other games. That means that he has, in just those other 5 games, he has 1 total touchdown. So you have to make a decision on Jamal Williams. Do you think he's likely to score a touchdown this week or not? I think he is less likely. Hence, I have both he and DeAndre Swift outside my top 20.
The other thing is Dan Campbell keeps saying they're going to integrate DeAndre Swift more. This has been since he's been injured. They didn't want to overload him. They had a limited snap count. It really hasn't changed. This week he played 20 snaps. It was not that different from last week. Jamal Williams playing 30 snaps, and he's only carrying the ball 5 times compared to Jamal Williams carried it 17 times. So again, DeAndre Swift, the benefit is in the passing game, but I don't believe it until I see it that they're actually going to put him on the field more.
Yeah, I think you have to get a little bit lucky this week with DeAndre Swift if you start him. And here's the reason why. Here are the ways in which you'd have to get fortunate. His role would have to grow quite a bit, which we don't know for sure, even if Dan Campbell is suggesting that could happen. They've been suggesting that for a few weeks now.
That's what I was just saying.
Yeah, but they keep suggesting it, and it keeps not happening. It does not happen. Moreover, like, he has scored touchdowns recently. That has saved you. And then the last thing is that, like, you need probably 3 or 4 catches for this to pay off. And if you get all of those things, you're in really good shape. If you get 2 out of those 3 things, you're probably going to be fine.
And if they get way behind to the Buffalo Bills, that's not happening. Yeah.
Well, you could get the passing game utilization. Yeah. I think
if they're in scoring position, I think, but I don't think they're looking to have.
My guess, and I don't know this, I mean, I think going into the game, the strategy will be, let's try to slow this thing down by running the football. Whether they can or not is a different story. We saw that with the Browns last week. They were unable to do so. But, again, I have some skepticism around these 2 backs.
That and short, easy passes to Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's what they're going to look to do this week against the Bills, because that's the only way they're going to be able to stay in the game.
All right. Throw to TJ. Oh, wait.
Yeah, I know. That hurts. That hurts. I went on NFLshop.com yesterday, and all of my jerseys are marked down like 60%. And it really did make me feel good. Giants at Cowboys. Let's talk about lineup blocks for this game. For the Giants, basically you have Saquon Barkley. Yep. And I don't know as though you're starting literally anyone else. Maybe Darius Slayton as like a dart throw flex.
Yeah, Slayton's a low-end flex play here for me. Basically like a low-end wide receiver 4, maybe even a high-end wide receiver 5. I mentioned earlier he has at least 11.5 fantasy points in 4 straight games. And the Giants, again, with no Wan'Dale Robinson, will turn to Richie James in the slot. Very, very desperate times for New York in terms of pass catchers. So if you think they're going to be playing from behind, could open up some opportunities here for Darius Slayton.
I just think that Saquon Barkley is the best running back in the league right now. And the opportunity only keeps growing for him in terms of pass catching because of all of their injuries to the receivers. They are using him in both dimensions of that game. It's incredible the year he's having. Just props to Saquon Barkley, and if you have him on your fantasy team.
You're pretty happy about it. For the Dallas Cowboys, lineup blocks include CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz. What about Dak Prescott?
Yeah, he's right there for me, Daniel. He's very close. I don't know. So the reasons why you would have Dak outside your top 10 or 12 would be a couple of things here. Is one, he's not doing much at all with his legs, which is something that was a big part of his game early in his career. Seems like that is by design. 2 would be that he has not hit 300 passing yards in a game since he returned due to that injury that shelved him for, 4 games because of the thumb earlier in the season. But I have pretty good confidence here in Dak. It is a frisky and tough and playing above their or punching above their weight defense in the Giants, but I don't have too many concerns. The Cowboys did beat this team earlier in the year with Cooper Rush. Dak has 19 fantasy points in 3 straight games. Wouldn't surprise me if he once again goes past 20, unless the Cowboys can run the football to great effect. But the Giants do have a pretty solid run defense up front. Dexter Lawrence has been an unbelievable player for them this season. So I suspect that Dak will have another useful fantasy day. Top 12 play for me.
Yeah, I have him as a top 12 quarterback as well, right on that fringe. Part of that, though, is because the running backs have been so stinking good, Stephania. Both Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott have crushed it here. Are you at a spot where if you were rostering both of these, you would start Tony Pollard over Ezekiel Elliott, or have you not made that decision yet?
No, I think you certainly could. I mean, Tony Pollard, look, the eye test of Tony Pollard it's been validated many times over. But what I would still say is that the role of Ezekiel Elliott remains. I mean, they are using him in certain situations between the tackles runner, near the goal line, in the red zone. He had the opportunity to get 2 touchdowns this weekend. He has value in that regard, probably an RB2, low end RB2, because you can't count on the touchdowns.
Yep.
He's going to have a role in the offense, and as good as Tony Pollard looks, as much of an RB1 as he makes the case to be, Dallas is going to use both running backs.
Yeah, they're going to use Zeke plenty. That much is for sure. Jerry Jones continues to make that clear. Even last week, the number of carries was very, very, very similar for these two backs. What we are learning is that, what we probably knew, but what we have seen over the past few weeks is that Tony Pollard is just a totally different tier of athlete than Zeke Elliott is. Tony Pollard's getting valuable opportunities in the passing game that Zeke will not, because he has one game with more than 5 receiving yards so far this season. The neutralizing factor here is that, as Stephania just referenced, if they're going to have the ball at the 1 yard line, they're going to probably be more likely to give the football to Zeke Elliott than they are Tony Pollard.
Yep.
So that evens things out a bit. I have Pollard, though, ranked ahead of Ezekiel Elliott. I think both of them sort of float in that 18 to 25 range for running backs. Pollard closer to 18, Zeke closer to 25.
We are simpatico field. I am with you on that as well. All right, let's talk Patriots at Vikings. Lineup blocks for this game include Ramondre Stevenson for the Patriots.
Yep.
And
Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson.
That's basically, yeah. For the Patriots, that's really it, though, is Ramondre Stevenson. I'm looking at Jacoby Myers. I feel like is sort of in this conversation as a high-end flex for me, as he is sort of every week. But
yeah, he kind of is what he is right now. Jacoby Myers, the target volume should be steady, around 7 or so per game.
he's a floor play kind of a guy.
Yeah, typically. I think the big question for the Patriots is, after back-to-back games amongst facing off against some of the best defensive lines and secondaries in the NFL, with the Colts and the Jets twice, does the passing game find any life on Thursday night against a Vikings defense that has been more generous against the pass this year? If so, that should open up some opportunities for Myers. But the only lock here is, of course, Ramondre Stevenson. That's assuming that Damian Harris continues to play similar role to what he has been so far. I thought I saw more out of Damian Harris last week than we have seen in a while in terms of production, but still 15 snaps to Ramondre Stevenson's 45 snaps. So still a very clear hierarchy in that Patriots backfield.
Very obvious. All right, from the Vikings perspective, you got Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson as lineup locks. Kirk Cousin, anyone else? TJ Hawkinson, I think, would probably be a lock for me in the tight end position.
There as well.
Anyone else from this team that you want to talk about, Stephania?
Nope.
Yeah, I think the only thing with this matchup here is the Patriots obviously are a very, very good defense. The NFL has this weird balance, like chemical imbalance this year, where, like, as we've talked about this in fantasy a lot, there are like 5 good quarterbacks as opposed to like 15 or 18 good quarterbacks. So the Patriots defense has been feasting of late. And for much of this season, some of it's come against the likes of Sam Ehlinger and Zach Wilson twice. So a better test, obviously, for that Patriots defense. Kirk Cousins, though, I still have closer to like a mid-tier quarterback too. Of course, with those weapons, he could throw 3 touchdowns in any game. But this Patriots defense does tend to make life pretty difficult on opposing passing games.
Yeah, I feel like after that embarrassing game against the Dallas Cowboys, the Vikings should come out with a different spirit here on.
You should think some hair on fire on Thursday night, right?
Yeah.
Thanksgiving,
It would
playing at
feel that
home.
way.
Yep.
All right, let's preview a few other games. That's it for our Thursday game. Let's take a stab at a few other guys here, though. Broncos at Panthers. Lineup blocks for this game include. Well, there are none.
There are none.
That's why.
If you're watching right now, you see the Patriots, Vikings
Patriots,
again.
Vikings. We have to go back to Thursday because there's no good lineup blocks in this game. And look, They got so many injuries. They got Chase Edmonds out. We've talked about that already. Jerry Jeudy's out because of the ankle. There is a chance he plays this week. He's now appears to be out of the walking boot. He's been around, moving around. Has a chance to play, but a bit of a mess there with their wide receiver position. Russell Wilson still not playing well.
And we talked about the running back position earlier on in the show multiple times. Latavius Murray probably going to be the guy if you're starting a running back this week.
Going to be the guy.
Yeah, and I think he actually is the closest player to a lineup lock in this game. I think the volume should be very good. He last week had about 2/3 of the carries. I do expect that we'll see some Marlon Mack. I do expect they'll promote Divine Ozigbo, as we talked about earlier on in the show. With Latavius Murray, the thing is, how much passing game utilization does he get? If he gets 3 to 5 targets, I think he'll pay off as an RB2, especially because he does have a nose for the end zone. He's a good goal line finisher as well. Both these teams, though, the strength of their team is clearly their defense. And because of how bad the offense has been for Carolina, no player could be considered a lineup lock. The big thing with Deontay Foreman, as we know, is that he has to get you rushing and a touchdown to pay off. And how confident are you against this Broncos defense that, God, do I feel bad for the Broncos defense? The best scoring defense in the NFL, the Broncos, or they're tied, maybe tied for first.
And the offense.
And they're the worst scoring offense in the NFL.
Oh. So, I know.
You feel bad for these guys?
They sit on separate sides of the locker room and just don't talk.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, who knows, right? I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. It's embarrassing, right? I mean, and who talked about the Broncos defense this offseason? None of us, because we were too fixated on the Broncos offense.
Yeah.
The Broncos offense is quite literally the worst in the NFL right now in terms of scoring the football. Last I checked, that is their objective. So the reason why we can do this game on a Tuesday for a Sunday matchup is that there's
nothing really to highlight.
Yeah, and if Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton play on Sunday, you certainly like the chances better of this Broncos offense functioning a little bit.
But it's week 12. We haven't
seen
it.
Both Jeudy and Sutton will be top 25 to 30 plays for me.
What about Dulcich? Has he worked his way into that top 12 tight end radar?
He's playing a lot. The indicators are really positive, but the offense doesn't move the ball.
Yeah.
They just can't move the ball. And so it's hard to advocate for 3 guys in the passing game being in your lineup when they can't move the ball right now.
Yep. What about from the other side of this game? I think when I look at the Panthers, if I see that Baker Mayfield is starting, it means don't start DJ Moore almost immediately.
I'd probably be pretty surprised if Baker Mayfield starts on Sunday. Performance has just been unacceptable, and Sam Darnold is waiting in the wings. I know Sam suffered a high ankle sprain a long, long time ago. You would think, though, he's getting pretty close health-wise to playing. It might help things a little bit. Not that Sam Darnold inspires a ton of confidence, but probably better than what we've seen from Baker Mayfield. But I'm with you, Daniel. If Baker is back in the lineup, you can't feel good about DJ Moore. Who another one of those guys that, if I could do a fake trades column.
If you could put him on a
I'd love to do
winning
that.
offense.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
You'd love to see him.
But this is a team that needs a quarterback makeover in the worst way this offseason. Whoever winds up being the top 3 to 4 draft prospects at the quarterback spot, Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud and Will Levis and Anthony Richardson, guys like that are going to be talked about in the first round once we get to late April. All of them will be names we'll talk about with the Carolina Panthers.
All right, let's talk one more game. Falcons at Commanders, and I think the lineup lock for this one is fairly obvious. Terry McLaurin has been awesome lately. And I know he's one of your favorite players, I believe, in your heart.
Yeah, totally. Love Terry McLaurin. Didn't even have a great game this past week because they didn't need him to. They just, I think before they had the ball on offense, they had a pick 6, so 7-0 game. It got out of hand for the most part against the Commanders. But here's the good news against Texans, But this week, what you expect is that the game is more competitive. Taylor Heineke, of course, will start again. And I'm no Mike Clay, but I can regurgitate what Mike has said 1,000 times. It's a great matchup. It is the primo matchup of all matchups, which is why Terry McLaurin, I think, is ranked higher than we've had him ranked at any point so far this season for our wide receivers. He's my wide receiver 7 on the board this week. Great player. The chemistry with Taylor Heineke is obvious. The target share with Taylor Heineke is obvious. The matchup is really good here as well. Terry McLaurin in the lineup. As far as the Commanders' other players go, as we know, the running backs, it's a conversation every single week. But it was a smash spot last week for Brian Robinson, and he did not smash.
No, he did not.
Spot.
No, he did not.
And by the way, 0 in the passing game once again for Brian Robinson. I know Mike and I have been beating this drum for a while, but Antonio Gibson's the preferred play. And it's not quite Zeke and Tony Pollard, but it's similar in the sense that one player has far more paths to fantasy points than the other, and that's Antonio Gibson.
And so I wonder how much that would change. I realize we're not in that spot. If J.D. McKissic was still here in this offense, I wonder if the way that Antonio Gibson was getting used would continue. Right now, he's out snapping Brian Robinson last week.
I mean, probably would change. He probably would not be being used the same way. But this is going to be the pattern going forward because there's no more.
There is no J.D. McKissic.
Yeah, I was going to say, it would probably impact Antonio Gibson, like Stephania said. It probably wouldn't change anything for Brian Robinson.
Exactly.
Like, he's a purely between the tackles runner.
And Gibson's getting double the snaps.
Yep.
Double the routes.
And all of the passing game looks from that perspective. Are there any other wide receivers here? Curtis Samuel has been kind of a disappointment from the start of the season, and he sort of worked his way into like that wide receiver 4 territory for me. He just sits on the end of my bench more than anything.
Yeah, I'd say for the most part, everybody else in this game is just sort of a bench consideration. Marcus Mariota maybe piques your interest if you're in a quarterback tight spot, but I think there's some better options this week, and no teams on a bye, so more quarterbacks available in general.
No Kyle Pitts, what about?
No Kyle Pitts for Atlanta. I think one thing to watch, and I know it's not for fantasy purposes, but I think it'll be very interesting to see what happens with Chase Young. Going to come back for Washington, coming off that ACL injury, and he'll at least get his feet wet in this game. So it could be a big boost for the Washington defense, at least from the energy standpoint. Such a key player for their defense.
Yeah,
excited to have him back.
Yeah, and Atlanta's backfield. Just to remind people, I know if you check the box score from last week, your fantasy score, you're like, I started Cordarrelle Patterson. He got 11.9 fantasy points. That's not too bad, right?
No.
Well, he had a return touchdown.
Yeah.
So 11.9 fantasy points, 6 of which, more than half of which came. It was amazing.
Also, he had a fumble, which lost him 2 points. He should have had 13.9 fantasy points.
So, yeah, but still 7.9 without that return touchdown and that
and
fumble.
A fumble.
Like that's, so I think that you are grasping for straws right now in that Atlanta Falcons offense. Drake London had 1 catch last week. Now went to the end zone. That's good, right? But
no Kyle Pitts. Can we manifest more Drake London targets with no Kyle Pitts in this offense?
Here's the problem, Daniel, is that even with Kyle Pitts, you'd be saying to yourself, their wide receivers besides Drake London are very inexperienced. Lamine Zaccheaus, Damiere Byrd. It's not like Drake London's competing with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans for targets.
They will not throw the ball.
Yeah, they don't want to throw the football.
And what about Algier?
Yeah, Tyler Algier is
Algier.
Yeah.
Algier.
Yeah,
Is
Algier.
that Mara Kamara?
Yeah, that was close. Yeah. I think it's Algier. I think that the G is hard in that case, but it's a tough one. It's a tough one. This offense is they're 5-6. The formula is working for them to stay in that division, and they did sign my guy Will Compton, who's going to change the complexion.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
I'm just saying, I may or may not have put a couple of bets on the Falcons for the Super Bowl this morning.
Love that.
You were very enthusiastic about the Will Compton.
I love Will. So fired up. So they're going to play. They're going to play great defense, great special teams, and opportunistic offense to stay in the NFC South race.
But the crazy thing is that they're in it.
5-6. They're half game back.
How ridiculous!
By the end of the week, they could be. They need some help from the Browns, but they could be back.
There
are no Niners in first place. Let's be clear.
Wow.
But
49ers, first teams the 2007 Patriots to win their first 4 division games by at least 15 points. They're hammering the NFC.
I don't know.
I will be thankful for the 49ers on
Thanksgiving. You should be thankful.
How well they're doing.
They look.
You should be thankful.
Yes.
All right, that's going to do it for our Tuesday show. We will be back tomorrow. Same crew breaking down the rest of the Sunday slate, our last show of the week.
Wish Keith happy birthday, please.
Yep.
Please do that.
He'll be very polite and probably say thank you back.
He probably will. For Field, for Stephania, my name's Daniel. Please make sure to continue to love each other, be kind to yourself, and we can't wait to see you tomorrow. We'll see you guys on Wednesday.